Wastelanders, Christopher here, Gaslands, NorCal. Thanks for joining me once again for another conversion video. Now, I've done all sorts of delivery trucks. I've done UPS, DHL, FedEx. They're all the longer trucks. Usually stick a big old ram on the front, like a wrecking ball or a big claw on top. We get them all, armored up and rusted and everything else. But this time, I'm going to do a USPS truck, which is the smaller truck. It's a Matchbox MBX delivery, which I imagine they couldn't actually use the USPS just for copyright or whatever else, if the government can be copyrighted, whatever. Anyway, that's what we're going to do this time. Now, if you look back in the past, in the archives, I think I've done one of these before. Don't quote me on that. You have to look. I've done several videos, so we'll see. Anyway, I think it's time we revisit this thing and get this thing ready to go and deliver some carnage. Now, it's a plastic model, so it's not going to take a whole lot to take apart. And then I'm just going to prime it and repaint it and get the decals and stuff on there. So it should be a pretty quick and easy build. Got some really cool weapons I'm going to stick on there, armor, everything else, new decals and everything. So this one should be pretty fast, pretty easy to do. So first thing first, let's get this baby apart, get it primed up. Alrighty, so we're all primed up and ready to go. You may be asking, why did you prime it when it was already white? Why don't you just go ahead and take off the decals and stuff? Well, since this is a plastic model, what I found with removing the decals and stuff is a lot of the time the plastic can get kind of malleable, scratch easy, and that's not what I wanted. I want it to remain smooth and everything, so when I put the new decals on, everything would look good. You can't see the decals obviously now because it's all primed up, so that's good. It's already got the rivets and stuff on there. We're going to do something kind of special with those to try to make those pop out once we get it all painted. Now, when I'm going to paint this one, I'm going to use the ivory from Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl. Their white can be really, really thick, and I don't want to worry about trying to thin it out or anything, so I'm just going to go with this one straight. Now, when you're painting with a brush, at least when I'm painting with a brush, instead of doing airbrush, which doing white is extremely difficult because the pigments and everything else just clogs the airbrush and makes a mess and pisses me off, and then I throw stuff and don't want to do that. So I'm just going to use a brush. Now when I use a brush, I want to make sure it's a very, very soft brush, and that's going to kind of reduce the amount of brush strokes, brush lines, I guess, that you'll see on there. You may get some, and then I'll just go over it with a smaller, even softer brush to try to get rid of those and stuff. But ultimately, it's the Wastelands. It's a couple brush lines aren't going to destroy anything. So let's get this thing painted up in the ivory. I've got everything all picked out as far as what we're going to be arming this thing with. We'll go over those once we get to them. So let's get it all painted up and let it dry, and then we'll get into the rest of the accoutrement. So let's get it white. Alright, now while that dries, let's work on the lift kit and the tires. Now the lift kit's coming from We Play Games, does awesome stuff, love these lift kits. One of the reasons why I love them, besides the fact that they just look badass, is they've already got the kind of pegs for tires on each one of the sides, and these are on all sizes of their lift kits, so you really ought to check them out. If you need some lift kits, definitely check them out. We Play Games on Etsy. Now these tires are coming from Angel Combustion, which his shop is kind of taking a break right now, which is sad because he does some killer stuff. But his tires always come with a little hole in them, which makes them really useful with the lift kits. For the most part, the holes don't always necessarily fit the pegs. So what I'll do is I'll go through with my handy dandy Dremel that I've had for about 50 years. It's kind of on its last leg. And I'll just widen the hole a little bit. Obviously this bit is too small, so I'll get a bit larger bit and just make the hole a little bit wider, and then I'll be able to glue them onto the lift kits easier and make everything even and won't wobble or anything when you get it all glued together and stuff. So let's get the holes widened a little bit. We'll get them glued on here, and then we'll get everything all painted up while the body of the vehicle dries, and then move on to some weathering. So let's get the lift kit together. Alright, now on to the weathering. Now, typically I just go through and I'll use some Agrax, put it on there, and then I'll wipe it off with one of these makeup brushes, and I tend to let it dry a little bit before I wipe it so I can get some streaks and stuff. I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm doing something a little bit different that I kind of just thought of. I've done stuff before where you put the Agrax on there first, and while it's kind of clumpy, you sprinkle in some of the pigments. Well, this time I'm doing it a little bit differently. I put some pigments in the little bowl and then put some Agrax in there and mix it all up just to give it a little more grime overall instead of just in some areas. So we're going to give that a shot, see how it goes. So I'm just going to wipe this on there, wait a few seconds, 10-15 seconds for it to dry a little bit, then I'll wipe it off and we'll see how it turns out. So this is a totally new thing I just kind of thought about, so hopefully this doesn't screw everything up. Let's give it a shot. Alright, so the Agrax is all dried up and everything. Didn't do a heck of a lot more than I'm normally used to. Maybe a little bit more grime on the streaking and stuff. I may try it again in the future, but at least I didn't screw it up. That's always the best positive you can hope for, is that the new thing you try doesn't screw up what you've already done. So, anyway, let's move on to the decals. Got a bunch of decals going on. There's really a lot of advertising or signage or whatever on a postal truck. I never really kind of noticed that before, but we're going to put them all over this thing, make sure everybody knows that it is a USPS truck, even though it's going to be in the Wasteland. So let's get some decals going on, and then we'll move on to the rest of the build and start getting together. Let's stick them. Alright, so everything's all painted up and ready to go. Got the decals and stuff all stuck on there. Went over a little bit with some matte varnish so they stick on there all nice and tight. I talked about the rivets and stuff, that I'm going to do something a little bit, no, not special, just a little bit different to make them kind of pop out. It's really kind of basic. All I'm going to do is just going to go through and kind of dry brush some silver over the top of them to make them stick out. It'll also make the lights and stuff stick out as well before we start getting it all back together and doing some fine detail work and then some more corrosion and rust and stuff. So let's dry brush and then we'll get it back together and see where we're at. So dry brush it is. Alrighty, so got the lights and everything on there, the fine detail stuff, looking very cool, very, weathered and everything else with the Agrax and combination of pigment and stuff. We could put all the pieces together and everything, and this thing would be, looking good. But I want to do a little bit of rusting, a little bit more weathering, so I'm going to do some chipping and stuff on it first, just a little bit, just to get it chipped up a little bit. And then we'll get all the pieces together, get it on the wheels and everything, and then do some rust. So let's chip it up and then we'll get it together and then we'll see where we're at. And I'm not going to do a whole bunch of rust, but just a little bit, because I would imagine this thing is pretty old for delivering packages in the Wasteland. So let's get it chipped up and then we'll start getting it together. Chippy chippy. Alright, everybody's all together and glued on there, looking good. Once I got it all together, I decided it needed a ram. It was just lacking something, so I stuck a ram on there. So next we're going to go through and do the rusting portion of it. Same rusting I've done in my last several videos, just because I really like how everything turns out. First, going to hit it with the Green Stuff World medium oxide rust, wait for that to dry, and then we'll hit it with some down and dirty before we dry brush it and do some panel liner. Make everything look all rusty and corroded and realistic and stuff, dust it up, and this thing will be ready to go. So let's hit it with some medium rust oxide and then wait for it to dry and go from there. So looking good, really liking it. Alright, and there we have it. One USPS Carnage delivery truck all ready to go and start delivering packages to the Wastelands. Really enjoyed this one. Like I said, start off with the plastic, which can be a little bit more difficult to work with than the regular die-cast as far as getting painting and stuff going on there, and priming it, depending on if it has a lot of decals and stuff that will show through. Luckily, this one didn't. The decals I did get on there, the custom ones, turned out great. Damn near perfect, I would say. But yeah, totally awesome. Love how the rust and everything turned out. These tire covers coming from Dennis Bryson, got them off of Colts. So cool. So glad I found them. They've been on there for a while. I just never really looked at them, but very, very glad I did. They just really make the build, cover up the spots where the other die-cast Hot Wheels wheels would go. Makes it look so much better. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, do me a favor and hit that like button. My goal is to do weekly videos, whether they're vehicle builds, terrain builds, battle reports, whatever. So if that's for you, hit the sub button below and ring the bell to get notified when new content drops. I do sell all my builds pretty inexpensively on my Etsy page, so if you want to pick someone up, see what else I've done, you can request a custom build. If you'd really like to show some love, head on over to my Patreon page and get signed up. Every bit helps keep the paint flowing, the printer printing, and the camera rolling. Until next time, keep your foot on the gas and your finger on the trigger. Gaslands NorCal, signing out.